So I think we could start now, right? After 12 minutes of deliberation and testing.
Yep.
Cool.
Stir it up.
All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Miskatonic University Radio, a podcast exploring Fantasy Flight Games' Arkham Horror the card game. I'm Dane.
Hey, we're live. It's me.
It's him, Dan,
I'm
and
Ben.
it's that guy, Ben.
Yeah.
And today, we wanted to stop for a second and ask you guys how you're doing. We hope you're keeping safe and healthy in your homes, and we kind of wanted to go back to a time where none of this madness and chaos outside was happening. We want to take a look back at Dunwich. We're going to rewind the clock and review the whole set. So we're going to review the box as well as all of the Mythos packs that came out, starting with the House Always Wins and extracurricular activity. We're going to go over some of the encounter cards that we thought were interesting or had a huge impact on us, some of the player cards that we were most excited about cracking packs open for, and talk about some of the mechanics and themes from each of the scenarios. So before we do any of that, however, in each box comes a series of 5 investigators. This was the first after the core set to be introduced to the pool of investigators, right? So these investigators have they stood the test of time? I mean, they're here. Zoe remains to be one of Ben's favorites, right?
Yes, it's always great. mostly for flavor. Maybe not necessarily mechanics, but I like the flavor.
No matter when he's going into the jungle to murder snakes, it's for God. No matter if he's going into Arkham to murder witches, it's for God. And that's why we love Zoe. Rex, as we all know, flew too close to the sun and got hit by the taboo list, and is now in low S tier rankings here with some of the best investigators in the game.
Back in
Jenny
Dunwich, though, he was a god.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is definitely true. He's always been an incredible reporter, and he will always remain that way. Jenny, one of the most rich investigators in the game. Jim, Colin's favorite, one of the fan favorites. Good in Carcosa, good anywhere that you get more skulls in the bag. And Ashcan Pete, hey, one of the favorites of the community in general, right? I think Mythos Busters just had a contest where he lined up as the second most popular in the whole game. So
people
pretty
just
cool.
love dogs. That's the thing. Like, people just love anything that has a dog in it.
It's Duke and human companion Ashcan.
Do you remember that movie with
that's the way
like
it is.
Owen Wilson in it that was about a dog that mysteriously made like $200 million or something, and it was just a movie about a dog.
Is that the one that was like Balto,
really
but like the
dog.
actual story of
This
Balto?
was like a live action one. It was like
Yeah,
My
yeah.
Dog something. Or like that movie like My Dog Skip that I saw as a kid and hated. Like, people just love dogs, man. I don't know what it is.
Listen, we know you're anti-dog, Dan.
Marley and Me.
Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
Marley and Me?
Yeah,
Creating Control just mentioned. That's it. That's it.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, yeah. No, it is really funny. I was just going back and looking at this list. I'm not really a huge fan of any of these investigators. I know I do like Rex a little bit. Rex was kind of fun, but none of the others really clicked for me a whole bunch. Jenny's cool. I don't know. Jenny's kind of fun. I think Jenny will be cool one of these days once there's like even more money cards in the game, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I think her and Preston have a unique part in the spectrum of investigators. But
I mean, the setting is kind of weird because like Zoe and Rex, when they came out, like, oh, these are just better versions or better at guarding and seeking than Roland and Daisy were. And then Jenny and Jim didn't really have as much support as they do now. Like, they're a lot better. Those two are in a lot better shape now.
yeah,
I think Luke's a dog. He's there still.
I mean, he's just been solid, right? Like, I know for single player, he's like absolutely ridiculously good. Just because he can hit the ground running, he could even just tech into like hugely strong cards like Lone Wolf, things like that. So like, he'll always be pretty solid.
Yeah, like he's solid. I don't know if the expanded card pool has done anything to make him better, but he started off solid, so he's good.
Yeah.
Well, let's start off by talking about the course set, or the box set, right? We want to talk about the mechanics and themes and extracurricular activity.
Oh yeah, so this is scenario A, or 1A. I mean, story-wise in Dunwich, the story for Dunwich, I was like looking back at it, and I was like, wow, there's like one paragraph of story text before each scenario.
It's a little bit different from the like Forgotten Age of Circle Undone, like Interlude 5B Part 1
Yeah, they kept it very simple.
Like,
So, like in previous ones that we've done like this, where we talk about new campaigns, I like, go in depth about the story, and this one's like, well, there's two professors missing. Go look for them. That's the that's the prompt.
we think one of them might be at a school.
Yeah, so
Maybe.
like, one's at a school, one's at a casino, and we'll let you decide which one to go to try to find first. And that kind of makes the first scenario is like a little bit easier than the second one because of based on the order you pick. So actually, a quick activity. You're at the university, and you kind of got like a spread out map a little bit, like 6 or 7 locations to start, and you're just looking around trying to find who is it, Rice? Yeah, Warren Rice. But the scenario itself, like it introduces the milling mechanic with Beyond the Veil and support that. So that's like kind of the persistent threat you see in 4 or 5 scenarios in Dunwich. I forgot to check, but where like you get Beyond the Veil and you don't, if your deck gets milled out, you take 10 damage, which back in Dunwich there was very little ways to prevent yourself from dying to that 10 damage, so it was like a death sentence, and you had to try to figure out ways to work with the cards you had and pass tests that would mill your cards or whatever.
You basically had to have enough allies that had a big enough health pool to throw under the bus so that you could just barely survive Beyond the Veil.
Like you could do, like Guardians could like stack up beat cops or whatever.
Yeah.
What else was that? What else was there at the very beginning of Dunwich? Guard dogs.
You guard dogs. Yeah, you guard dogs.
Bulletproof vests. You know.
Although morality, don't throw your guard dogs away.
I guess you could get vests, but yeah, going in blind, you'd be in rough shape. And people outside of Guardian, I don't know if they had enough silk where they could survive. So that was like a very cool threat that they introduced, and you see it pop up a few times. I think this first scenario, we also start seeing some birds, although they're definitely more prominent in later scenarios.
Yeah. They're just like kind of a general malaise, sprinkling some just horror all about the campus there, just making you have -1s to all your stats.
Yeah.
Also very pingable if you're Agnes, or if you have like a Alice or B-Cop or something.
Yeah, I think that was a big reason to play Zoe, right? Because you get to engage them and immediately kill them if you have your cross out.
Oh, yeah. Zoe's great. I don't know what I said earlier about her maybe not being the best. Zoe's great. Big stuff or gets money. It's fantastic.
She was the only one who could do that, yeah. Other than big peacocks, yeah.
Yeah, which only Roland had access to. Oh no, I guess everyone could get it as a 5th slot from Dunwich, or as one of their 5 off classes, but I don't know if anyone did. But in general, in this scenario, I think this introduced like a not straightforward objective, where like you went and found, I think, Jazz. You had to find Jazz to get to some of like the locked up places around the campus, and the agenda or the act at that point was like find an objective on a card and complete it to advance.
Was this kind of an early instance of something being a little unbalanced for solo? Because if you have like 4 players, you're going to chew through the encounter deck fast enough to find Jazz on your own, even if you don't spend clues doing it. But if you're solo, it kind of takes a lot longer. You really need to like actually spend clues to look.
I feel like is this the scenario where it's like if you're solo, you get to search for 10 cards instead of 5 or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So they balanced it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
So they helped a little bit with solo there, to find Jazz, and the mechanic deck's only like 30 cards or something, isn't it? So like a couple actions, it's probably not too bad. But so that was kind of cool. You had to like you could either like go to the dormitories to save the students, or you could try to fight the experiment, or you could go try to find the professor if you did it as the first scenario. And if you complete one of those objectives, then you advance, and then there's like some repercussions for not completing the other objectives that affect the story, or maybe what encounter cards you find down the road, or like adds a chaos token to the bag.
And not one of the good ones, one of the bad ones.
Yeah, pretty much always the bad ones. But and then what else was there? Oh, and then return to in this scenario, we're going to go through kind of like how return to changed. Most of the return tos didn't really change the flow of most of the scenarios. It was mostly like bug fixes or like harder encounter cards.
Yeah.
I think, and then like maybe a couple extra random locations. Like this one added the one observatory, which in order to get the clues from there and the victory, you had to discard from the top of your deck. Which
Oh.
means if you're the seeker and you get beyond the veil, it might be rough.
Yeah, I mean, I
Might
definitely
make a
remember in
little,
other scenarios where there was something sort of almost clearly like broken or like missing. They kind of patched it with the return to box,
yeah.
but I don't think
Right.
there was a whole
Right.
lot going on in this scenario.
They patched it, yeah. And then, but along with the Beyond the Veil in the Boundary Beyond, they added the I forget the name of the counter set, but it added like Infinite Doorway and Baleful Welcome. This
Oh
Infinite
yeah.
Doorway. This Infinite Doorway is so brutal. It's very
Yeah.
scary when you have Beyond the Veil.
It's kind of like upgraded arcane doorway. Is that the one where you have to take
Yeah.
the will test when you move out? This thing just stays
Yeah.
there. Like it
Just stays
doesn't go
there.
anywhere. It just stays there, no matter who you are.
Because Arcane Door,
It
you
always
just
makes
have
you
a
discard
mystic like
cards.
walk through it and it goes away and then it's gone.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
This one stays there forever. This one, I like this one a lot because if you don't have Beyond the Veil yet and your deck's like kind of low, it's like, oh, what if I take a couple turns and like just go through that location a few times and maybe you'll successfully mill my deck before I get Beyond the Veil, or maybe I'll actually have 0 cards and then draw Beyond the Veil. Didn't I feel like that happened when we were playing earlier?
It
Or got really
sure
close to
did.
that. But that's a very memorable card. Though it pops on other times, but it's like the deck milling stuff is scariest in the first few scenarios because it might be before you get like Hell Soaks or other ways to mitigate. So yeah, I think it's mostly that's it for and notes for extracurricular activity. I guess Baleful Welcome and which is the return to version of Terror from Beyond. Both of those cards are the perils that like make one person choose a few things that affects the entire group. Like covered it up on the slide, but Terror from Beyond, you pick an asset, you pick asset, event, or skill, and everybody has to discard that type of card from their hand. And that's always very brutal, especially if you don't forget about it, don't see it coming, and never like hint at when it might be in your hand. Just like, oh, well, I don't have any skills in my hand, or I don't have any assets in my hand. I guess it's fine to pick assets, right? And then your guardian, who has no weapons down, is just glaring at you.
Yeah.
As they discard all their guns or whatever.
It's certainly a card that makes everybody sweat at the table because nobody can say anything about it unless somebody. Well, no, you can't even play Ward unless you're the one that gets it wet, right? So, like, if you don't know what's in everybody's hand, if you don't talk about it prior, like, hey, I'm feeling a little skillful lately. Maybe you shouldn't discard some skill cards if you get that one. Like, it's hard to play around, and this effect has been repeated in sets afterwards, right? Like in Carcosa, in Dream Eaters, even we've seen kind of forms of this, carry on. So this is kind of like the first inception of it, which I thought it was cool.
I think the best peril cards are the ones where you might not necessarily have all the information to make the decision because it like affects somebody's hands or like what people are planning to do in their turn. Because there's some peril cards where you can like look at the board and be like, oh, if I pick, what is it? What's the Circle and Done card that you put a Doom or do 2 damage?
Fate of All Fools.
Yes, Fate of All Fools.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, if I pick damage, it'll kill that guy. So I guess I don't pick damage. I have to pick Doom or whatever. Like those are cool, but these ones at Dunwich where you have to decide, do I trash assets or the return to Dunwich? It's like, oh, what do we not need to do this turn? Do we need to play cards? Do we need to fight stuff?
Right.
When it's a hard decision because it's not always the right choice. So.
I do, yeah. I like those cards a lot. Definitely potential for massive disaster when you have like the one new player in the group is the one that draws them or something. That's always kind of
right, right, yeah. Yeah, so Baleful Welcome like kind of amplified that too, but yeah. So I feel like that's mostly the extracurricular activity. So we can move on to House Always Wins, scenario 1B.
Yeah. So House Always Wins. We go to the casino. We're trying to find Professor Morgan. If you go there first, I think you actually can find him. If you go there second, you instead have to help rescue Peter Clover, who's the the mob boss, or at least he's the owner of the casino. But the theme of this one is kind of like, at least for the first half, you have to try to get clues using resources instead of investigation actions. Resources, or I think cards. I think there might be some options like discard certain cards, which is definitely like at the time it was like, oh, we can't just vacuum up all the clues with Daisy or X here. We have to.
Yeah, you have to do really specific things.
Yeah, and the other theme was like gambling. There's like gambling, and there's like luck-based stuff. Is kind of the theme of the encounter cards. We see like a encounter set, the cursed dice has the cursed dice symbol. I forgot to write down what the actual set was called, but it has, like,
there's kind of an early example of like one of these choices that the game asks you to make without knowing what the consequences are, because you have the opportunity to cheat on any skill test.
Oh, right.
But
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but you have to write down that you cheated, and you don't find out until later what the repercussions are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not.
It's kind of on the level of reading a book in Arkham, right? Everybody knows that that's the good thing to do.
I mean,
Well,
that is usually like at least immediately you're going to find out soon afterwards, even if you don't know before you make the decision. This is
Right.
more like, and the game also fakes you out on it, right? Because we're going to talk about a scenario pretty soon where there's a choice you can make like that and ends up like not having any kind of consequences at all, right? So
they do have a couple of fake outs. This one definitely does, and maybe this one's supposed to be like a little bit meta, because the cheating mechanic is like once during the scenario, or is it once per round, like somebody can choose to succeed on a test instead of fail it or something.
no,
right?
you can choose to treat a token that you drew as any other token.
Oh, okay.
So you
Right,
can
right.
just, oh, hey, Elder Sign, what do you know? You know,
Woo!
yeah.
But it's like sort of implied that like that could be bad. I think, at least when I first played it, it was like, oh, it's cheating. You can remember that you cheated, and then I was like, you are cheating because you're actually cheating outside of the game by changing your chaos token, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of the implied a little bit there.
And then you're like, no, not in my game. I'd never cheat. And then as you slowly die from horror or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so talking about like the actual encounter cards, Creating Control brought up a pretty good point here. Raise the Stakes is a really interesting encounter card from the Return to set. It's a card that actually has 3 modes. You kind of have to choose one of them. But if you hit one of them, is remember that you've cheated, which is kind of something that you don't really. You only cheat like if you want to, like if you do it proactively. This is something that forces you to do it if you can't do the 2 other things, right?
I think cheating, like, you really only want to do in regular if like you are failing a test that's like going to kill you or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like Return to, it has Raise the Stakes, and it had one other card that like directly impact the cheating and involves that a bit more in the scenario.
Right.
And Raise the Stakes is another one of them, and I think you still never want to pick that you've cheated unless you have to. Like, to lose the resources, I think, is usually what you end up picking. If you're playing like a big money character, you might be very sad. You might be tempted to put it in front of you. Because the other effect is, I think it buffs any criminal enemies engaged with you.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is
It kind of stays in your threat area.
And it doesn't even buff them that much. It just after Act 1, it just gives them like +1 fight and evade, so it's usually kind of fine.
Yeah. I think we recently started playing Dunwich again as an all rogues group, and I think who's Colin playing? I don't remember, but Colin drew like 2 or 3 of these and had it in his area.
He's playing Sophia.
Yeah. So he was like, oh, like 1 is fine, but he had to take 2 or 3, and it was got buffed some of those thugs up to like 6/6 or something.
Yep.
But yeah,
get some out of the encounter deck, though.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting card they added there. What's the other things going on in House Always Wins? I guess at the beginning you have to like be very careful with how you get clues, because the Clover Club boss is following you around and he'll like attack you. And does he engage an attack? Yeah, he engages and attacks if you discover a clue while he's there.
Yeah.
So like in multiplayer, I know like we're always trying to like figure out how to lure him away from locations we want to get clues. I imagine in like solo, it's probably a bit harder to get away from him.
Well, and usually you really want to like get the clues on the first location that first turn, and then enemy phase on the first turn, he'll move there, and then you can all move to the next location and get clues there.
Yeah. By selling your allies.
Yeah.
Selling your guard dogs to the mob.
But then I think like once you get enough clues to advance, things start getting crazy. Like abominations pop out, start destroying stuff and eating the mobsters. The mobsters turn on you and start shooting you, and it's like all sorts of chaos. And you have to like retreat into the back room and you try to find Francis Morgan. If you did this the first scenario, but if you did the second scenario, it's like way harder. Like I think that's a much higher difficulty bump up compared to if you do extracurricular activity as the second scenario. Because in this one you have like 3 less turns, and you have to like backtrack to go and find Peter Clover, and then like drag him out through the back entrance, which is like a lot more action. When you have even less time compared to if you do this first, where you try to get Morgan.
And I mean, the timing is really tight, because just picking up Peter Clover, you have to do a fairly non-trivial parley like 4 times or something.
Yeah.
Which likely like only one person in your group can even do.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's like conglomeration of spears all over the place and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like the encounter card that stuck out to me the most was Twist of Fate. It's kind of one of those cards that you get it, and sometimes it's like whatever. But sometimes you just get that like 3 times in a row, and then you just draw like a spooky symbol like a skull or something like that 3 times, and you just get hit with like 3 or 6 horror, you know, and it's like not insignificant anymore. The fact that it's like a very binary effect where it's not a test that you can kind of like skate by. You just have to you either have to cancel it or you have to take horror or damage is tough for a lot of investigators, I think.
You know what the serious thing about Dunwich is, like, this was before Ward 2 existed. I was like looking through the cards and was like, wow, they didn't exist till the end of Carcosa.
Yeah,
like the counter deck is very scary, because this is before there were a lot of things that existed just to counter this type of stuff.
Right.
So
right.
It is nasty. Yeah, that's how Solis wins. You try to escape out the back. I think this one has some more story repressions, and like if you cheated, you get token in the bag, and if you did this scenario first, then the abandons blame you. The gang blames you for the club getting destroyed, and then they show up later in some other scenarios. Mm-hmm. But if you do the second, then you save the boss, and then Naomi has your back. And that doesn't do too much in the base set, but I think in Return to, it has a little bit of extra bonus that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
I think this is I like the flavor of this scenario a lot. I think it does a good job of like, I always think of in like Temple of Doom, the like opening scene in the nightclub in Shanghai or whatever. Like it does a good job of like you're hanging out at a club and it's just fun, and then all of a sudden it turns into like a violent, weird disaster. So that part is cool. The thing that I think is a little bit difficult about it, though, is a lot of times if you're playing Dunwich first with like a new group of people, this feels like not the best thing to start with, because the first several rounds are like not a good representation of how the game usually works, because you can't really investigate and you can't really fight. You kind of just have to move around and do like the gambling and drinking actions and stuff. So it's cool. It's just like kind of it gives people like kind of a distorted picture of what the game looks if they're just learning how the game works.
Yeah, like if you come at it from core, it's like a new twist. It's like, oh, this is a cool, different thing. But if it's your first scenario ever, it's a little weird.
Yeah,
but
still good.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about a couple of the player cards that came in the deluxe box? Just briefly mention a couple of our favorites. So I need to say banana somehow without it.
So we had
slide.
I guess in the core set, we didn't really have like we had a good foundation of cards for each class, I guess, but we didn't really have a solid direction on where each one was going, and this is kind of what set the stage for them, right? Like, so we had the Strange Solution, Unidentified. This is the first inkling of something that we're recording in the campaign log that is being put in by a player card, right? Like it's not. This is the first of that cycle. Each cycle afterwards introduces a new card, so like untranslated, whatever.
It's like this. When this first happened, it was like, oh, this is crazy. It's some mystery thing that does something later. How is that going to work? This was great. I think we had a couple Dunwich runs going, like as the game was coming out, I think, and we like put this in our deck at a couple characters, even though we didn't know what it did.
Did
very cool.
Did Circle and Dun have one of these?
I think one cycle didn't have one of these. It might have been Circle and Dun.
I think it was Circle and Dun, because I know. So Archaic Glyphs and Ancient Stone were in Carcosa and Forgotten
Dream
Age.
Diary,
and then Dream Diary and Dream Eaters.
Yeah, so they did skip it, but it's been pretty featured in a lot of the campaigns. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a mechanic, especially if you're playing as the game comes out, you don't know what it does yet. You decide like, oh, do I put it in my deck just to see if it'll be cool or if it'll be or lame or whatever. But
Yeah. I think that Runhammer here has a good point. If you're just getting into the game right now, and you kind of, if you spoil it for yourself, if you're looking ahead to the packs, like, well, why would I buy the Dunwich Legacy? Then you kind of know like what the Strange Solution does at the end. Whereas if you just are buying these cards as they come out, I don't know. It could be good, it could be bad, who knows? So eventually we came to find that Strange Solution, was absolutely 150% worth it. But I think that kind of talking about some of these other cards too. Shortcut goes a long way in a sleeker deck too, depending on who you're playing. It's a core card for Ursula, I think. It's a card that's we've seen in a lot of other investigators. Even like Mark, who can play tactics, loves this card. Action compression is great. All of these other cards kind of set the stage for different ways that the classes play. Like Double or Nothing is a huge card for rogues that they got early on, which allowed them to do crazy things like investigate a zero shot location via a flashlight or something like that, and get double the clues off of it, which is kind of cool. Rite of Seeking allowed people to punch in for more clues, because from this point, I think from the core set, they only had Shruling, right?
I mean, yeah, like this set introduced a lot of stuff that is like thinking back, like, oh, this is core stuff. Like Mystics didn't really have a good way to get clues if they didn't have high intellect and using like flashlights or whatever. And they added Rite of Seeking. I was like, oh, great. They added like Peter Sylvester as an ally. Like Survivors didn't really have a strong ally, and also this is great for Agnes.
Where would
Agnes
we leave without him?
Great in the core, and now she got Rite of Seeking and Peter, and she was all of a sudden great.
What are you complaining? Are you saying Aquina isn't a great ally?
I don't remember
what else? No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, they're just touching on a couple cards that came out. Like Fire Axe is like a core card in a lot of decks, and it was a great addition to the Survivor pool. I threw Blackjack 2 on here from Return to Dunwich because it's like a good complement to Machete if you're trying to do like single one-handed weapon builds. And then I threw Chronophobia on here because it's one of my favorite weaknesses because just because it ties right into like you're running out of time.
It is weird to think that was in the Dunwich box. I always think of that as being one of the core set weaknesses.
I know. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it blends together a bit. But yeah, these are just a couple of the cards from that set that we still use, and they still remain pretty relevant, I think.
It's kind of funny because we're going to be talking about the taboo a little bit later, I think. But Double or Nothing made itself on the taboo list, and that's just a card that we were like, what? It's almost too fun to like. Oh man, I don't want to spend 3 experience on that.
I mean, it's really.
But I still want to put it in my decks.
It's really only good as part of like combos and like weird interactions and stuff.
Oh, totally.
A lot of the rogue cards that were added on the taboo list were just added because it was they had some crazy combo that like broke something or made like an infinite loop or something.
Like,
for general play, it was like they didn't really need to do stuff to these guys. Just don't do an infinite combo.
But, yeah, exactly.
I think Double Nothing. My favorite memory was like doing Blob and like combining it with Shotgun or something and doing like 30 damage in one attack or something. So, So why don't we move on? Because we still got 6 Mythos packs to cover.
Woo!
So, I think the next slide I was gonna briefly mention like the story choices in Dunwich are much tamer. I think they're all like. If you make a decision that's kind of sketchy, you add a spooky token to the bag. Like if you let the students die in extra activities, you add a tablet. Or if you let certain allies die, I think in later scenarios, you get a tablet. And if you if you cheat, you get a squid or an elder thing.
Yeah, I think that for 3 campaigns after this, until Dream Eaters, there was a pretty clear pattern of like you have kind of a couple broadly defined story choices that last through the whole campaign, and that's associated with like putting in tokens into the bag or taking out tokens out of the bag to represent like what path you're on. Like I think that was true in at least some of the next campaigns.
Yeah, definitely Carcosa and Forgotten Age and
But Dunwich didn't have that. It was basically just like when you do something that's like bad, like don't do this. Like when you steal something or like cheat, you add a scary token to the bag mostly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Or let the
which
students
is
die.
kind of an odd way to do it, but you can like avoid getting all the spooky tokens if you do the right story choices or do well in all the scenarios. Just kind of neat. So it's like kind of like if you do bad in a scenario, it's like, oh, you get a spooky token, it makes other scenarios harder. But yeah.
Yeah.
Then we got the first Mythos pack, right?
Which is
Yeah.
the one that's like sold out everywhere all the time, and everyone's always on the Reddit like, I need to
It's
copy
actually
of
in
it.
stock now on the FFG's website.
Wow,
I know this
you heard it here first.
There we go.
Well, no,
But unfortunately, I think Mythos packs like 5 and 6 are now.
No, but,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
funny because when this first came out, so the whole first like round of stuff for this game, like all throughout Dunwich, FFG like wasn't really printing enough copies because they did not anticipate the huge amount of demand that there was almost immediately for this game. So so we used to like Ben and Colin and I, when we were playing this game, we used to basically like call game stores all around New England. And like whoever was closest, because we were kind of spread out, would like have to go get a copy of it. And I remember sending Colin to like rent a zip car and go to some random game store and pick up like the only copy of this pack that we could find like anywhere, just so we could play it.
Oh yeah, those are great times.
I remember living in like central or Western Mass and driving down to like Southern Connecticut to the only game store that had like one copy of the Dunwich Legacy left, and some of these Mythos packs. So those were trying times for sure. But the Miskatonic Museum, what a scenario!
Yeah.
What a unique scenario, right?
Yeah, it's very cool that there's like just one enemy in the entire scenario that like keeps coming back and keeps coming back stronger.
Yeah.
The hunting horror, and there's a lot of encounter cards that like would buff it or heal it or make it respawn or whatever. So like the whole scenario is like because every time you kill it, when it comes back stronger. So you had to decide if like, is it time to kill it, or do we just try to evade it for now and run away? And that was kind of the theme. The whole deal with it. That was basically what you did. Is you tried to evade it if you had something that could evade, or you try to kill it and complete the story really fast, so that it didn't come back too many times and become like massive and be very hard to evade and fight. So that was definitely a new mechanic, because you're used to having like, oh, there's like 10 or so monsters in the encounter deck. You have to constantly deal with monsters. Well, this is like, oh, you can put it in the corner, or you can run away, or it's in the void for now, so we're safe this turn probably.
Right.
But
and in the Return to, they made it a lot scarier, and they made it a lot harder to kind of do that plan, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they did. They added some encounter cards that like automatically put tokens on it. They also fixed like a loophole, I think, with like the acts and the agendas.
That's right.
When they flip, like he would respawn, but because they were flipped, it didn't have the text that added a token to him. And Return to, so that he would get tokens faster, or it would get tokens faster.
Right.
Whatever this weird snake thing is.
So I mean, the encounter cards that I remember from this, I think Beyond the Veil makes a glorious return here. In case you didn't have enough of it from extracurricular activity, it's back. There's one from the Return to set that it gets attached to the I call it the flying space noodle. It like does 2 extra damage, or it gets another pip of horror and damage, and then when it hits you, it heals 2 damage. So it's even worse if you were like trying to put it at 1 health, so you can ping it quickly.
The dark bidding.
Yeah. That one was so rough when I saw it, but man, that art is so wonderful.
Yeah. This is like a neat little scenario. You're like exploring a museum. Like you like try to get the guard to help you if you want, or you break in.
Oh yes,
and then you start like exploring the exhibits. And you have to protect that ally. If you break in, the guard gets mad at you, and you go and find like a curator or something, hang out with him. Otherwise, you get the guard. And if you let the guard or the curator die, you get a tablet, which is bad. And they're like a 1 health insanity guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you gotta keep them alive while you're trying to find clues and dodge this monster that's like sneaking around in the darkness and popping out and being like, I'm a snake. Before snakes are cool and Forgotten Age or whatever. But
this one I always like when there's a scenario. Sometimes you play a scenario and you say, this is like an X-Files episode, and I always
yes.
I think
Exactly.
this scenario I think is probably the first one that really could have been an X-Files episode. So that obviously makes me very happy.
Yeah, Kraken on a Stick brings up a good point here. Wasn't there something with the icon on the location cards in the Return to set were all misprinted or something?
There was like a misprint in the Return to, so you could tell when you randomly picked exhibit halls. I think you could tell which ones were from which set.
Well, it wasn't even a misprint. It was after they printed the first run of the original pack, they changed the way that they did like the reverse side of locations, like the unrevealed side. So they got rid of the little circle that they used to put there. But then it meant that if you had like the first printing run of Miskatonic Museum, which I think most of us do because we're nerds and we started playing this game right away, and then if you got returned to two cards that are supposed to have the exact same back, so you can't distinguish between them until you flip them, you'd be able to tell which one was from the original game and which one was from Return to. Didn't actually matter, but hypothetically, if some people had like an obsessive need to always have everything be like perfectly correct all the time, this is the kind of thing that would drive them completely nuts, right, Ben?
Ben.
Yeah.
Game rule.
On my sleeves, I put little tiny stickers, but then I think I also FFG had the extremely good parts replacement thing at the time. They sent out replacements to me when I asked.
Hooray.
That was great.
Unfortunately,
RIP FFG's parts replacement policy. That was really cool.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a card game. You know, it's a small team, so sometimes these mistakes get through, and they were good. They were at the time. FFG was great at collecting it, so it was fine. I don't know. There wasn't much else going on in the scenario. You like explore some exhibit halls, and they all have different effects on them. This one that I have here, mostly covered up, that I definitely can't pronounce the name of.
Far too scary.
Well, there's one that's very scary that has extremely scary art on it. An extremely terrifying animal.
I would like to formally request a playmat of pretty much every exhibit hall art.
Oh, they're so good too.
Like I would buy a playmat of any of this.
Why doesn't FFG pump out more playmats? They only did the initial run,
because
right?
They hate money. They hate money more than anything else in the world.
FFG, please.
There's so much really amazing art. Maybe they don't have like high enough quality. Like maybe the
prints
art isn't good enough for a full print or something. But
it's like I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But
they pumped out all those L5R mats. I think a lot of those.
I think honestly, like my most memorable experience, kind of looking at the Miskatonic Museum as a whole. The first time we played through this, I had a group of friends, and every time the snake would come back, we would play the Russian guy singing that one song, the Tra-la-la-la-la song. Every single time we'd play that song because he just kept coming back. So like he would, if there was something alluding to the fact that he might be coming back again, we would keep playing that song and it would get louder and louder and louder. And it was a running theme, and we had so much fun with like this snake that just wouldn't die.
Yep.
Yor can't even bury him deep.
Can't get rid of him. He always comes back.
Yeah.
So that's the Miskatonic Museum, I think.
Yeah. At the end, you like try to get the Necronomicon, and you're given the decision to take it or burn it. And I mean, obviously, there's one choice: you burn it. Obviously, it's
pretty
evil.
Easy choice.
But sometimes when you're playing with new people, they choose to take it. And
we took it the first time.
Yeah, I think my group took it the first time. I feel like I protested, but I would let the other people want to keep it. Fools. But you'll learn. Always burn it, guys. It's first rule of Arkham. Always burn. Matt Newman took that choice away from us in future scenarios. We weren't allowed to burn stuff.
Yeah. Also the first appearance of Delve Too Deep, obviously, making the game a little bit more exciting since 2017.
Yeah, hell yeah. We had Adaptable too, which was a card that we were like, at first. But man, that card has come a long way.
The card's stronger because, like, especially when you're replaying scenarios, because you can tech for each scenario by swapping cards in and out.
Yeah.
It's also a doorknob, I've got a plan, but we call it doorknob because the art is clearly doorknob.
At the time, this felt like a 2 of auto include in like every Seeker deck. Honestly, I've like kind of stopped playing it just because I think in most I think in like a 4-player game, you should just be able to say, I'm going to get clues faster than you've ever seen anybody get clues.
Sure.
And it's your job to kill stuff. Like I'm not sure if that was really possible when the game first came out, because it felt like, there's this huge boss. We need like even the Seeker to have like one card in their deck to help kill it. But I think these days you can specialize enough that I don't always play it. I've got to play it. In fact, most of the time I don't. But it's still a great card.
Yeah, and then also Pathfinder. Pathfinder is an auto-include in most Seeker decks.
Yeah.
Just because it's
so much action compression.
Free movement, action compression. It's really good.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, there's some other cards. They also accidentally printed that Oops card, but
they printed on the title of the card what they said when they printed it, right?
Yeah. Sometimes there's some joke cards. It's fine. So
I think it's
yeah,
antithetical to I've got a plan, right?
yeah. So the next scenario is the SS County Express, which
Choo-choo!
is I think maligned in the community for certain times when you can just instantly lose on the
Is it?
first turn.
I thought everyone. I thought
But
this was like a fan favorite.
I love it. But
Me
I've
I've
too.
never
never.
had
Yeah.
the no, actually no, I have had the first turn death, but it was after a couple of years of playing. But yeah, in general, this one's like a cool scenario where you're in the end of a train car and the train's getting sucked up into a portal. So you have to try to go through the train car as fast as you can, and that's what the instructions on the act are. It's like run, get to the end of the train, or get to the engine car. So you're trying to make your way through the train. Like every time you can only leave the current location to clear off all the clues, and then every time you enter a location, is actually like usually some type of penalty, like you gotta discard a card or take damage or something. And most of the encounter deck is there to screw with you, to either like stop you from moving or like making Doom appear faster, like Ancient Evils in this or Resurgent Evils in Return to.
Oh, God.
And then there's that Clause the Steam card where if you fail will test, you can't move for the turn. That's very
Oh,
bad.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is like a really
Yeah, I mean the
high
the worst part, I think the thing that usually kills you if you lose this one is like a cultist. You get one cultist, which because it has to go in an empty location, goes to the car ahead of you that you're like almost in, and then someone else draws a cultist and it has to go in another empty location, so it has to go with the next car.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well we're just not going to get to that far away cultist. We just like lost a turn.
Oh, yeah.
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 And the agendas are, each of the thresholds are so tiny, right? They're like 3, 4, maybe 5.
Yeah,
I remember.
it's very intense.
It's rough.
And one of the kind of like subtlest instances of like this game having a sense of humor is like the first agenda is you get three turns and then you lose one car. Then then you only get 2 turns and you lose another car. And then you see the next agenda, it's like 4 turns. Oh, this is great. We can relax a little bit. But no, then you get to the end of that one, you lose 2 cars. And I think I would bet a huge chunk of people that are playing this blind like die suddenly on that third agenda, which is amazing. It's great.
Oliver definitely got sucked into the portal because he was one card slow.
We even mentioned like this is the first like I guess one of the first most spicy like moments when you're flipping over the agendas and you're like, okay, it's one train car every agenda. All right, guys, we just have to be one train car ahead of the ball here, and then you flip that one and it's like, oh.
On the other hand, hey, you get an XP for getting sucked into the portal. So
it's true.
Who's to say if it's bad?
No, I really enjoy this scenario, even with its faults. Although Return to fixed it a little bit, I think it gives you like a slight bit of a buffer.
This one's great.
It does.
Ancient Evils and screwed all in the first turn or something. But
it's definitely hilariously bad for certain investigators if they have a weakness that adds a Doom, like Marie or Tony maybe. But that's
or Agnes.
That's just funny.
Dan's very good friend, David Renfield.
Agnes can at least like maybe tank the horror for a while if she has Peter out, but yeah.
Yeah, if Zoe draws her weakness and it spawns a what is it, the Wizard of the Order, the one that gets to do every turn in the engine car.
Oh, because it has to spawn at the farthest location.
And it gets to do
no.
every turn.
Yeah, Creative Control brings up a good point too. This is the main reason to not run Karen Zobal in Dunwich. This is like the reason because it's almost a coin flip in whether or not you're going to get like Ancient Evils into cultist, and you're like, oh.
I mean, I think it depends a lot on what difficulty you're playing on and if people have played it before and if people have good decks. Like if you're playing like standard with like I think if we went in and did it standard with like characters that were fairly well suited to this campaign, I don't think we'd really have a super high chance of dying. But yeah, it's still more than you want if you've got the O-ball in your deck, maybe.
Yeah, and I think one of the first times we played this, we played it with our friend Alex, who was playing Skids, and man, he stole that luggage. And from then on until forevermore, always steal the luggage. That's what we have to say.
Train's getting sucked into the portal anyway.
I commented that if you steal the luggage and get sucked into the portal, you deserved it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Matt loves oops. Oh no.
He sure does.
That makes sense. So yeah, Train's pretty cool. I think Return to they added like an extra enemy that made it spooky that like respawns every time the agenda advances or something.
Yeah, it's brutal. The Conductor.
The theme of the monsters here is like they're like mutated engine parts or whatever. Is also really cool.
Yeah,
like there's a steam monster or like
the
engine is broken apart. But yeah, so cards. There was a couple of, like, Stand Together used to be an auto include in like every, like, one of the first upgrades in all Guardian decks that we played. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not anymore. It's still pretty good. It's still, I think, at least 34 player. It's a really good card.
I think it's still
It's actually-
excellent in multiplayer. It's just sometimes it's kind of hard to find the space for it, but it is excellent if you can fit it in.
I'd agree with that. Level 2 deduction, All-Star Seeker, punch through a bunch of clues card.
Really good.
I'm out of here. Hey,
Fun.
I mean,
you're a rogue.
it's great tech for Rogue, especially in scenarios where, like, maybe you have to get across the map fast.
And Charisma and Relic Hunter are pretty much like the staple permanents that, I mean, Relic Hunter a little bit less so, but I feel like 3/4 of all decks eventually get a Charisma or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allies are so good.
Yeah.
These are the first permanent cards, right? And they are... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Adaptable, technically, is the first one. But these are, like, the bread and butter permanent cards.
Yeah.
Pelicans grown over time, but Charisma was good off the bat, especially because you get the professors as story assets in Dunwich.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I think to the point where you hear people sometimes say that Charisma should be tabooed or something, which I don't really think I agree with that. Like it's kind of just fun because it lets you play extra allies. Like it's not like it's too good or something.
I could see it being good charisma, but
well, I mean, playing extra allies also comes with a cost. It costs money to get those allies out. They take up deck slots and stuff.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah. And you're for Charisma, you're paying 3 XP for something that doesn't directly add more stuff to your deck. It only lets you spend more XP to add more stuff to your deck. So
yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, then
so
get off the train.
You get off the train and we actually get to Dunwich. It takes us half the campaign, but we're in Dunwich.
Hey,
nobody likes us because no small towns in Massachusetts like visitors. So you're there and you're trying to explore the town. So this one had a mechanic where, like, you need to find the key in the hidden chamber to, like, stop your friends from being sacrificed. But they're hidden underneath random locations along with some encounter cards as, like, traps. So you need to try to find those cards as fast as you can. You can get lucky and, like, find them at the first 2 locations, in which case you can, like, beat the scenario in, like, 5 turns.
That definitely happened to me on my last Dunwich run. It was funny.
Oh yeah. Sometimes the variance is just, like, so great where you're like, oh great, it's the key. Oh great, it's the thing, and then you could just go and the skull is based off of the amount of, I think, the locations that don't have encounter cards under them. So even then, you're just, like, winning. The skull only is like a -2 at that point.
The whole reason you want to do it fast, though, is because of this kidnapped card.
Yes.
I think it's the art on the box too, but it's, you make a test, and if you fail it, one of your allies gets taken and put in the sacrifice pool.
Oh no!
And then every time they advances, one of the people in the sacrifice pool gets murdered, along with, I think, 1 extra if there's a kidnap card attached, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So your precious allies like Milan or Peter or Duke, if you're Ashcat Pete, can get kidnapped and murdered. And then at the end of the scenario, anyone that's murdered is out of the campaign, so you don't get to have it in your deck anymore. So that's why this scenario is scary. That kidnap card, killing an ally, could be like a crux of your deck. It's very scary. Like,
it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Like in, like, D&D and roleplay games, you're, like, not afraid of dying as much. It's like if your gear gets destroyed by a rust monster or whatever. This is the same type of a thing.
It's like, oh, do you know how much that cost?
Yeah. No, this is, like, I mean, like, if you're a secret, like if you're Daisy or Rex or something, and you get your Milan gone. Have fun without Milan, I guess. Like, I mean,
it was definitely true early in the game when there were few alternatives that would, like, boost your intellect, and you didn't have as much choice. Right. These days, it's, like, maybe not as crippling, but it still sucks in a lot of cases.
Yeah, now there's definitely more options that you can fill in, but sometimes you might build stuff around, like, Melange or something, and losing that could be really bad. And again, Duke, if you're playing Ashcab Pete, they even, like, put a cheeky achievement in the return to box, which is, like, finish the campaign after Duke was sacrificed or something.
Oh no, Matt knew it too. Matt knew he put charisma in the set before this, and then was like, "Hey guys, put all the allies in your decks."
Play super friends. Yeah.
I like the scenario just because it feels, like, intense the whole time, because you do really want to try to not let any allies get sacrificed as you can, because you get more victory and better reward. And then this scenario, if you did House Always Wins first, also has a bunch of gangsters in it there to go after you. It's like one of
Yeah.
the story decision.
Yeah, I actually just watched one of my friends play through with the drafted deck with an Ursula and Wendy, and he got hit with the hired gun pretty early on, and it was so brutal. He just took over the entire board because every single gangster that they dodged, because Ursula and Wendy can't really fend for themselves and fight them directly, so they were like just depending on dodging them. This hired gun just made everything so unbelievably brutal for them. They just every single thing hunted, and there was just like a flock of like whippoorwills and like a whole ton of gangsters on one location. Wendy had to like run away to save Ursula so that she can get the last clues. It was hilarious to watch.
Someone in the chat pointing out that Ben was just kidnapped and thankfully not sacrificed. But
he came back. He came back. I can't even fathom having a agency backup murdered by a bunch of country bumpkins.
This is a cool scenario. I like the race against time aspect. The randomness makes it a little bit really playable, and it's fun. You fight. There's like a boss at the end. You fight. I don't remember if they changed him and returned you to make him scarier, but you kind of like duck in and out to try to grab clues, or to duck in to fight him because he doesn't make AOs.
Yeah, he doesn't make AOs. He doesn't move.
It's kind of a neat little interaction.
Yeah.
So cards from Blood on the Altar. I put every card on the slide because every.
Yeah, you were joking that this is the one where like pretty much every card sees play. Even something like Defiance that I think is like normally not good. There's the Silas,
I put it in there because Silas likes it. He likes to upgrade it more than better, but
and even it's also like if you were to make like a histogram of like which packs had the most cards tabooed. I mean, so what? 3 of these permanents got heavily tabooed, I think.
Yeah. Higher Education is now 8, as is Streetwise, and then Scrapper is up to 5 now, I think.
Yeah. The Scrapper one always felt gratuitous to me. Like, I don't think that one is. It's good, but it's not like I don't think it needed to be nerfed. But the other 2, it makes sense.
Especially if Cyrus aren't rolling in money. Although I guess I know Preston can't even take it. So yeah, but all these permanents are really good. Higher Education. In multiplayer with Seekers, was like really game breaking. Streetwise really strong in big money decks. It grew stronger as more the card pool expanded and big money was easier to pull off.
Yep.
And then like even some of the niche cards like Rise to the Occasion has started to shine with newer survivors like Calvin and Stella and Preston, all those guys.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Lone Wolf usually pretty bad in a group, but basically the best solo economy card if you can play it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For the Worst was helpful for Guardians to find their weapons or whoever to find their weapons.
Yeah,
just all this great player cards in this pack. So I'm sure we could talk about them for hours, but what is next slide? Did I put the tech debt thing in the next slide? I guess I did. So just I was gonna briefly mention like there's a lot of cards that came out after Dunwich that like when you're replaying it now you can pull them in to like kind of strategically handle some of the challenges of Dunwich.
That is true.
It's a polite way of saying like trivialize certain things that used to be really scary.
That's what I was trying to say. I forgot to put Ward 2 on here, but that would just cover up most of the other cards. But other than Ward 2, like stuff that like lets you ping to kill whippoorwills or cultists or rats or whatever, we call pinging like doing a actionless, testless damage. Like Beat Cop existed already, but they've added like Small Favor and the Occult Lexicon and Bloodright, and there's 1 or 2 other ones.
Small Favor in particular is like a lifesaver in Essex County Express because you could snipe a cultist like 2 train cars away.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
And then like Beyond the Veil, there's a lot of cards that can counter Beyond the Veil. I didn't put them all on here, but like Deny Existence is a big one. Where you can just like, I took 10 damage. Nope.
Yep. Exactly. Or like healed 10.
It's really funny that doesn't have any kind of cap on it. Like I remember, I think Perseverance, which is like a kind of a more limited card that's probably less good overall, specifically says it can only prevent up to like 4 damage or horror or something.
Yeah, it's funny because you can compare it to the red card. One experience, Exile itself, prevent up to 10 damage and or horror. I can't remember the name of it, but one experience, or you just take a Deny Existence and like deny like 50, like 107 horror, doesn't matter, no cap. There you go. Ron Hammer said Devil's Luck. Yep. Yep. Thank you, Ronhammer.
Just goes to show that mystics are kind of the best at sort of like doing weird magical stuff to prevent things from happening, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What else? Yeah, like Shortcut 2 is helpful on scenarios you have to backtrack, like Miskatonic Museum.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Out of Here came out in this cycle, but like it became a very important tech card for House of Ways Written, so you can get that extra victory.
Oh yeah.
Instead of dropping your clues on the back door or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Alley. And then we'll talk about in the next scenario, but like Waylay, and to a less extent Mind Wipe. Waylay makes the next Indention Unseen a little bit more trivial because you could use it to just kill the broods of Yogg-Sothoth off without doing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That, yeah.
Because they're not elites unless they get the Return to card on them. But
that's right.
Yeah, so it's just cool. It's definitely cool to go back and play campaigns with newer cards that when you're dealing with a mechanic that was really scary, it's no longer is. It's like when you play a video game when you have to like backtrack through an area that was like really difficult when you were like low level, and now you're coming back with like whatever new abilities or gear that you have, and you just steamroll through it. It's kind of what it feels like sometimes when we play some of these cards. It's like, oh yeah, that was really scary, but I got this new. I'm experienced now.
Exactly.
So and there is an actual interlude in the campaign, but it's just like all the people that you save like do a little speech and join up with your party.
Yep.
And you get like the esoteric formula.
Yeah.
But so Undimensional Unseen. This is I'm gonna say this is not my favorite scenario.
I mean, I think this, especially early, this had the reputation as being like the bad one that nobody liked.
Yes.
I don't think it's great, but I honestly don't think it's all that bad. Because I did it recently. I mean, a lot of it is like, if everyone in your group sucks at willpower, then you're going to have a bad time. But, I don't know. It's got some kind of interesting aspects to it. Like, I like how you can, some of the locations have like a thing that lets you move the guys around in a certain way, but you have to like do it. If you use that strategically, you can like do some cool stuff. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Strategy to manipulating where the broods go around the map, which is cool. I think like the reason I don't like it is like if you do very well in Blood on the Altar, you get like 4 or 5 broods that you have to spawn. And like I think you reach a point like halfway through the scenario, it's like, oh, we kind of have this under control. At least that happens sometimes. And then
You just have to wait for the other ones to come out.
It's kind of slow. It's like, oh, we need to spawn another brood, otherwise we're not going to have anything to do next turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is true.
I think that's the awkwardness. But if you're like not ahead of the curve there, if you're like under pressure, then like trying to figure out the strategy, like, oh, we got to move this brood over here and get a clue on it, and then attack it while it's exhausted or whatever. I think that's cool.
Yeah. Creating Control and Kraken bring up a good point here, though. You get a player card called Powder of the Ibn Ghazi if you save, I think it's Armitage, Rice, or who's the one that we find in the
Morgan?
Yeah, Morgan.
Yeah.
I think each of them give you like the recipe for it or something like that, and then the lead investigator can choose to put it into play in the beginning or something like that.
And it has one charge on it for each person that you saved or something. Each person that survived. Yeah.
Something like that.
It lets you put clues on stuff that are exhausted. Yeah, the Blood on the Altar, like the better you do in Blood on the Altar, the harder Undimensioned Unseen is, but you get a couple extra clues on that card if you save the right person. But if you do bad on Blood on the Altar and like everybody dies, then like this scenario has like 1 or 2 broods in it.
But
Yeah.
that also means you don't get as much XP for this scenario, right? Like the XP you get from this is just basically the number of broods that you finish off.
Yeah. And Kraken alluded to it earlier. Dunwich does not give you very much XP.
Nope.
I mean, compared to the modern campaigns,
Yeah.
for sure. But of course, Delve Too Deep wasn't tabooed in Dunwich, so
That's right.
Yeah,
you can run more than 2 of them.
We definitely used to crunch like 4 or 5 of those things in the scenario if we could. Yeah.
Delve, resign. Delve, resign. Delve, resign.
Which
Yep.
I think you should still be able to do. I think you should still be allowed to do just because it is such a risk and it can screw you so badly. But
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's reasonable. Yeah, so Unmentioned Scenes, kind of a mixed bag. Return to spiced up a little bit by making the broods a little scarier. Like instead of them all being the same exact thing, like some of them have like more health or
which is definitely cool. I do like that.
or like higher fight or higher agility or whatever. So that
They
more interesting.
They acknowledged the waylay thing too. I think one of the cards actually just straight up says, "This is now elite. Stop waylaying things that you're not supposed to waylay."
Yeah, imperceptible creature I think makes them elite. It also means you can't mind wipe them to like send them to the discard or whatever. But but yeah, this was one that definitely I think Return to helped make it a little bit more interesting, at least for me.
Yeah, there were some weird tech things. Waylay was one of them. Bauta from the, or like all the masks from the Venice.
Oh, Carnival, yeah, I forgot about
You
those.
could use. And then also Ron brings up a good point. Empower Self with using transferring the test, the will test, into a different test, and committing vicious blow to kill one of these things. He's onto something.
Yeah, it could be fun. Because the way to fight them is like you get a spell, the esoteric formula, after you spend clues at one location, and it lets you attack them. And it's the only way to actually hurt them, but you have to use willpower.
Of course, the really pro way to do it is to go do the core set first and get Lita Chantler, and then don't sacrifice her and devour below, and win the campaign and beat Umorthoth, and then keep her as an ally all the way through this to Undimensioned and Unseen, and then whenever you attack, you do an extra damage because they're monsters.
I think the funniest outcome for that plan would definitely be like you do that, and then she gets kidnapped to blow the altar. It's like the one
that would be extremely funny. That would be hilarious. So.
Oh man, there are some player cards from Undimensioned and Unseen.
Yeah, there's only a couple that I think still stand out.
Yeah.
Upgraded
Rite of Seeking, really, really, really good.
Yeah. That's probably the only one Dan likes.
Yeah, let's talk about that one though. Dan kind of first drilled it into my head. This is like probably one of, like, if not the best clue cards in the game for a 3-person scenario. Very specific to 3-person scenario.
I think that was actually Ben who originated that discovery, but yeah, no, I definitely.
Yeah, I think where we fit. Rite of Seeking is amazing.
Yeah, Rite of Seeking is amazing
because it scoops up like a lot of locations have like often are in based on the number of players, so Rite of Seeking always gets the correct amount.
Exactly.
And what else is there? Yeah, Dark Horse is cool in some decks, and Quick Thinking is great on decks that you want to exceed by more on.
Also great for infinite combos.
Yeah,
it's true.
And you might have forgotten to put on here. Isn't the card that gives you extra actions if you succeed? Wasn't that in this pack too? I might have forgotten to put that on here, but yeah, I don't know. Oh, and then there was the Springfield, which has the honor of being the only card to be tabooed to cost less experience.
You'll get there one day, Springfield, little buddy.
All right. Well, let's move on to Where Doom Awaits. So this is the scenario where you have to climb up a hill. That's the scenario. But you do it a little obtuse way because there's like a spooky mist or arcane energy. I don't remember exactly what it is. Making your way up, so you have to like discover locations that are like extra dimensional or otherworldly and get some clues. And then once you have clues, you keep going up. This scenario like has a really big doom threshold, which if you keep it under control, it's fine. But if you start letting it spiral because you let like a couple of devotees of the key spawn and then escape up the hill because they're better running up the hill than you, it can become kind of intense. But I don't know, it's a neat little scenario. It had some bugs in that, like, I don't know if it was a bug, but maybe like a design flaw where if you're playing a character with low intellect, you it was very hard to spawn the locations because you couldn't.
If you were just totally relying on stuff like Sixth Sense or like non-investigate clue discovery stuff, you were in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
So that was pretty bad on like lower player counts or solo. I think they fixed it a bit in Return to, where now it's like instead of discovering clues, you spawn locations.
Yeah.
I think they introduced some other weird new bug where like if you drop a clue in that location, you can't pick it back up. And then you might not be able to get enough clues to actually climb up the hill or something like that.
Good old Dunwich.
But yeah, it's fine.
They'll fix it in Return to Dunwich. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So, this one, Return to introduce the story reward of Naomi, who's as like a story reward. She's kind of cool. I kind of wish she was introduced earlier in the Return to campaign, so you actually get like more than 1 or 2 scenarios to actually use her.
Yeah,
because she's like kind of expensive to put into play.
but she was
so you
really
might
really
not-
good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Creating control makes a good point here. Well prepared with her seems like a good idea. If you have 2 books or 2 intellect and 2 combat symbols on her, would get some pretty good value.
Oh man, should tell Colin. Colin loves well prepared.
I also I love violent commands. I think that's one of my favorite encounter cards. The art is amazing. I love the name, and it's also kind of gives you some fun decisions when you're dealing with it.
That was like a replacement for one of the generic sets I returned to that I threw on here because I thought it'd be fun to mention. Violent commands and Earl hands are very neat encounter cards.
Yeah.
Does that not look like Matthew McConaughey?
A little
Going
bit.
crazy?
Yeah,
I can
see that.
Yeah.
Maybe attacked by a spider or something. I don't know. But yeah, encounter cards that have weird decisions. The fun with violent commands, though, like somebody else at your location can activate that because you're a threat area and stab someone, which is very funny. Because it's like, hey, go. You're like whispering to them, go stab that guy, and you're like, yeah, I'll do that for you, buddy.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, this is like a fine scenario. I feel like usually we are able to keep the devote to the key under control in multiplayer. It's probably a bit harder in solo, just to like, because you might not have that choice to like, oh, do I have time to go kill that guy and backtrack or whatnot.
Right.
But it's a pretty okay scenario. It's like a boss. The Seth Bishop spawns at the end, and depending on a choice you made early on, it's like he's hurt or he's a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
But he never really felt like a boss to me. It's just because he's just like a high health enemy. He doesn't have anything.
In Return to, I think he was actually like a huge, like horrible, malformed thing, right?
In Return to, there's a scary version of him, I think that pops up in the last scenario if you like.
Okay.
Hit him or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was like the first scenario that I think if you lose. Then the campaign ends.
Yes.
Which was like a new thing. We hadn't seen that before.
Right.
So, but yeah, other than that, I don't know. It's an alright scenario. It's not my favorite, but it's it's fine.
I think it could have been cooler, but it has some good stuff about it.
Wasn't completely standout, I think, in terms of like already having Essex County Express and blood on the altar.
Yeah.
But in terms of player cards, hey, we find one of the strongest secret cards that has ever existed.
Well, we know it's one of our favorites.
Yep.
The Strange Solution finally got upgrades.
Strange Solution, Restorative Concoction. Definitely one of the most powerful secret cards.
No, we're talking about Acid Icar, which you have deemed Melteroni.
Yes, Acidic Icar.
It's so good at doing damage as a secret, which you basically couldn't do before.
It's ridiculously strong.
I think the most amazing thing about it is that it has eluded the taboo list twice in a row.
I think the most amazing thing about it is that you can reload it with Cache 3, which really seems like it can't possibly be intended because it's.
That didn't exist when this initially came out, but it's definitely pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
probably should include it on that text.
Yeah.
But what else? The Ace in the Hole is in here, which is a cool way for rogues to extra actions. That's also been tabooed because of infinite combos.
Infinite combos,
Fearless too is like great for mystics that are constantly taking horror from their spells to heal themselves. Those were the couple of standouts for us.
Yeah.
So final scenario was Lost in Time and Space.
Yeah.
Lost in Skids and Skits.
This is like we stepped through a portal at the end of climbing that hill, and all of a sudden we're hurtling through space on weird alien worlds.
Yep.
This was a cool scenario mechanic wise because it was one of the first scenarios that had like a really weird mechanic, which we start seeing a lot more of in future campaigns. But it's like the locations are all in the encounter deck for the most part.
Yes.
You had to like find them, and every time you left those locations, like they would get shuffled back in or discarded. So it was like
you take a damage, right?
Between dimensions, and it's like a tenuous or a very delicate balance of like trying to keep that pathway in place so everyone can get across. I think you're trying to get to, I forget the name. You're trying to get to the edge of the universe, I think it's called.
Yes.
And spend clues, and then And then once you do that, I think Yogg-Sothoth spawns, and you have to like try to run away from it and dodge it as you try to furiously get through the portal and close it to escape back to Dunwich. I thought it was like I think it's been eclipsed by later final scenarios, but I don't know. I enjoyed it when we were playing through Dunwich.
It was a good climax, I think. There were a lot of enemies, and I mean a lot of enemies that were in that encounter deck that could just spawn and create this huge mob of like just really big monsters that you had to face. Most of them having like 4+ health, I think, right?
Yeah, it was the first. It kind of initiated the trend of like the last scenario. You're just going to be swamped by like 4 health monsters, which I'm fine with. And also, the thing I also kind of like about it is it requires everyone to have like a couple of clues to like, well, I think whoever enters like one of the locations need to have clues, and then also in order to resign at the end, everybody needs like 2 clues or something, which I kind of like because it can be very hard for like your main guardian people maybe to get clues in some cases. And I like when in the last scenario some people die and don't make it to the end, because it's like it's the last scenario. It's not like anyone has to stop playing or re-roll their deck. It's like it's more fun if a couple people die. So
Sometimes you have to dramatically sacrifice people to get the win.
Exactly. That's cool when that happens. Yeah.
I think Return Team made this a little bit scarier because it has Yogg-Sothoth in play from the beginning.
Ooh,
and like when a location despawns or you get teleported, when you would get teleported to another dimension, you instead get teleported to Realms Beyond, which is where Yogg-Sothoth is hanging out, and you have to get out of there as fast as possible before he hits you and murders you. Because one of the main ways he kills you here is like if your deck runs out of cards, you take a certain amount of sanity instead of discarding cards or something. So
That's right.
Yeah, although what's weird is that or maybe not weird, but it's not like if your deck runs out he kills you. It's if you run out of cards from his attack, then you're driven insane. So as long as you have like 1 card left and then you can cycle your deck, then you're going to be okay probably.
Well, if you have 1 card left, then you take 4 damage. Like it's you discard cards and you have none left, you have to trash stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're just driven insane. Oh, yeah, no. If you run out of cards, you're driven insane. So yeah, I don't know. I guess as an ancient one, I didn't feel like he was going to kill me. It was more like us running out of time. It's cool. I like him.
Definitely way bigger than it's of a scope, anyways, than Mordoth, right? Like this is like just this massive thing at the end of the universe, trying to slap you and kill you. But
it's kind of like theme-wise, it's like a dramatic change from the rest of Dunwich, which is like kind of low key dealing with cultists most of the time, and then like it slowly ramps up like it's a bigger and bigger spooky tentacle monsters or abominations, and then we're in space and there's a really big tentacle monster.
In the chat, Creating Control points out that Realms Beyond, which has I think the highest shroud that we've ever really seen in the game so far at 9.
Oh no!
You can do a combo with Crack the Case to gain like 9 money. I think you don't even need Roland because I think you can actually use Quick Study. Like there's like non-Roland specific cards that can drop a clue, or Forewarned for that matter.
Mr. Sumerian just being like a pretty accessible one if you have Roland.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. You can gain 18 money like in 2 actions, or not even, right? Because it's all fast.
Well, I mean, obviously you should play this in a character that can play Crack the Case and double so that you can, get.
Well, he wants it so you can drop a clue. There's no clues on there naturally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
This also like messes up. What's the card that you let you get a clue from every location, but you have to base up the highest
Decipher
reality.
Decipher reality.
This made that even harder to pull off. Like before, it was like a 6 was the hardest of the scenario, so you could like scoop a bunch of clues relatively reasonably. Now it's like a 9.
Yeah.
That was definitely brutal. That came out in this pack. I don't think I put it on the list because it's really expensive. But I don't know. A cool finale. There's a couple cards that are memorable. Vicious Blow, level 2, is really good.
Really great.
Your first buy, but often a late game buy.
Probably underrated card. Really, really good card.
Speaking of underrated cards, let's talk about Monster Slayer.
Yeah, really solid.
Dan loves Monster Slayer. I think a lot of people do not like it. Do you want to briefly, in 7 words, explain why it's so good, Dan?
Does it have to be 7 words, or can I do like 30, 40, 50-ish.
That's 7 words.
Fine, if you're up for the challenge, it's fine. Whatever.
I think if you're playing a guardian or a monster person, your goal is action compression. Your goal is to be able to keep the board clean from enemies all the time, right? So things that basically let you quickly get rid of an enemy with a lot of health without having to spend a ton of clicks to do it is great. That's what this card does.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't give you a bonus to your combat, so you still have to maybe commit stuff to pass.
Just play Mark. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that's the big operant thing here. I think it's really, really good for like Mark, who has a base 5 and then like basically has base 7 because he can just think about his dead wife and then he'll be at a 7. But some other guardians might struggle to get up to those levels. I mean, now there's a lot of cards that help you, like daring, and you can just commit,
that's the thing. Like if you're a guardian, you have to have a way to get your combat up to like 8-ish or to hit big enemies anyway. So unless you're totally relying on your weapon to do it, like you have a weapon that's giving you a huge bonus, you should be able to use your like well prepared or high roller or daring and overpower, like those kind of cards, like whatever cards you normally use to boost, you should be able to use with this.
Yeah. So I know that like Optum Play had listed it as one of the cards that they're going to be taking out of their collection, but we like it here.
They should give it a try. It's a really solid card.
Yeah. Gold Pocket Watch.
Pocket Watch is always a cool card. Like you get it late game and you can use it to do like a double turn or like skip the enemy phase or something. And it's just like I feel like there's like really cool ways you can be like, oh, we had to kill this boss. We can't do it in 1 round, but what if we had 2 rounds?
Yeah, exactly. So, fond memories of being in Depths of Yoth with y'all and Colin and pocket watching a whole turn from Ursula because she can include it because it's a relic, and then having like Mark and Finn and I think it was Akachi or somebody just wail on Yig from like 30 health to 0.
I think what's really fun about it is like probably most of the time you skip Mythos phase, right? Maybe under certain circumstances, maybe you would want to skip the enemy phase instead. And then like there's even certain very limited cases where you might want to skip upkeep because maybe you just really don't want the enemies to ready and you're fine giving up your free card and you're readying your cards. But I think like can you imagine ever wanting to skip investigator phase with this? That's something I think about sometimes. Like, is there
if you're briefing as Safina, that's exactly what you do.
Like, is there any reason you'd ever want to do that? Maybe. I don't know.
Why would Safina want to skip investigator phase?
She's just tired. She wants a nap. I don't know. It's definitely a cool card.
Yeah.
And this finished off Shriveling, giving it a level 5 version where it's giving Mystics a way to like consistently do 3 damage, although at a high cost if you draw a spooky symbol.
Yeah.
Easy to mitigate with future cards like the Grotesque Statue and stuff, but still very powerful. I still see play in a lot of Mystic decks. But yeah. So I mean that was all the Dunwich cards and scenarios. Before we did our final thoughts, did we want to briefly talk about? Do we want to do we never decided how we want to do this. Did we want to talk about our final thoughts first, or did we want to talk about Read or Die?
We'll talk a little bit about Read or Die, just because it technically is in the Dunwich place. It's in Miskatonic University. For those who haven't played it yet,
it uses Dunwich cards. That's why.
It uses Jazz. Uses all the campaign.
So I mean, this was a new printer play scenario that I think Matt and Jeremy pushed out a week or 2 ago.
Spoilers.
Well, I was gonna try to do it without spoilers, but just like it's kind of like a neat scenario where you replay Dunwich and you have to have Daisy involved, and her whole goal is like all the books in her deck get like spread out throughout the university, and she has to go collect these books in order to like complete the objective. It's kind of like a fun reuse of an existing map and like tweaking the goals around and like throwing in like an extra monster or 2 just to twist it up. And I don't know, I thought it was neat. It's like I'm excited for the potential of like maybe revisiting other scenarios with like a specific investigator and like tweaking how the map works or something to just give a different twist on it, or like something weird with that investigator's abilities or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. It opens up a ton of dynamics.
I know it's like a new thing that people are pretty hyped about, and I'm excited about it as well. So I thought it was worth throwing in on this Dunwich episode. And they also introduced the Parallel Daisy. I don't know if we want to go too much into that, but it's just like opens up a lot of design space for like revisiting old investigators that uh, gives them like a different spin. Like this one, like it makes it so like her books, she can like use them all at once as one big powerful like flashy effect, and they also like boost willpower and whatnot.
Yeah, I'd love to see them. I'd love to see them do this more broadly for like maybe as an alternative to the taboo list for like in some cases like Rex, it's pretty simple. You can just taboo him to like only be able to use his ability once per turn. It's a pretty simple change. But maybe for other investigators, you know, provide like an alternative that maybe like has deck building that works a little better or like is a little bit less strong in terms of its ability or something. It's just a cool thing they can do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also made like the advanced versions of these weakness and signature card, which kind of like make the signature card more powerful, but also the weakness scarier. And I don't know, I think that's like a cool thing to like revisit some investigators. I'm just excited for the potential like revisiting old investigators and maybe tweaking them to still have the same theme, but maybe make their mechanics work a little bit better or smoother. Like Daisy, I think was already like in a pretty good shape, so I don't know if she really need to be tweaked too much. But there's definitely other investigators I think are played less or like a lot harder to take advantage of their abilities.
It'd be cool to see like parallel Rita who can use like rogue cards or something, you know?
Yeah,
Something like
yeah,
maybe
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
that would be great because right now she can only use those like 3 trick cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I just looked back at looking at the chat, and there's some crazy ideas about how to use it.
I was gonna mention it in a second, but yeah.
Oh boy, good way to grief deck with a double the enemy phase with a pocket watch. if you hate your friends, yeah. But so yeah, I mean, Dunwich as a whole is like a solid first campaign. Obviously, it hooked us all into playing this game forever.
That is true. I mean, I feel like its strongest point coming at it from like, 5 cycles later, it's got some of the most powerful player cards. And maybe it had to just so that, classes could start out on a good foot and things. But I mean, it really laid the foundation for Seekers especially, and it kind of like pushed us towards, I know that at least we knew and were pushed more towards Seekers and Guardians because of the fact that they had things like I've Got a Plan. They had things like Dodge from the core set combining with like Lightning Gun, for example, is a big XP gun that you can use as an alternative to like Monster Slayer and smaller guns. They had a lot of different options provided. Whereas Rogue and Survivor didn't necessarily have as much accessibility in terms of like the 2 biggest things that you're doing in the game, right? You're doing proactively, you're getting clues to help win the game. Reactively, you're fighting monsters. Rogues kind of like delayed that from happening, but they didn't really have too much in by way of like contributing to clues or things like that. Eventually, with like Finn, we got more of that, but yeah.
I mean, I think the Dunwich cards are like a little bit more straightforward and like, oh, this does some action compression or this, it's easier to evaluate like why a card is good and powerful. While later cycles have more wackier cards that can have like weird fun interactions to make them strong. And I think rogues are like lean more into like the weird fun interactions to be able to do cool stuff, and it wasn't as much of that in Dunwich.
I think they've also said that they developed Dunwich alongside the core set, like pretty much at the same time. And I think they basically made a pool of player cards and then picked out a part of it to put in the core set, and the rest went into Dunwich. So you can feel that kind of continuity, I think, between all of these different cards. I also think in terms of the scenario design of the campaign, it's definitely been, I think, surpassed by some of the later ones that are just a little bit more interesting, that are doing different things. But I think that playing Dunwich first makes you appreciate how Carcosa does the kind of like spooky, unreliable narrator stuff, and how the other campaigns have like more mechanical complexity. Like you definitely appreciate those more if you've already done. Which is, I'm not trying to say Dunwich is bad. I'm just trying to say that Dunwich kind of like sets the like default of like this is like kind of like the replacement level campaign, and then afterwards you get to see things that go off in different directions.
Yeah.
Charles asking in the chat, like, where do we rank Dunwich compared to everything else without getting too deep into like spoilers on other campaigns? I don't know. I like Dunwich still. Like we're replaying it with like all rogues, which is an interesting experience. But
Undimensionally Unseen is going to be really
but,
special. I can't wait for that.
but I don't know. I guess it's one of the lower campaigns for me now, just because I think a lot of the newer campaigns have been very innovative on the system and done creative stuff. I don't know. I've been Shirani had just been growing on me, so I might like it.
I know.
I know. Maybe Dan. Maybe not Dan, but
You guys are weird.
I think so I think Dunwich like I feel like is maybe at the same level as like I think I said the second half of Dream or campaign B for Dream Eaters I thought was closer to Dunwich overall, but I think the rest of them I like more than Dunwich, like Circle Undone, campaign A, Dream Eaters, definitely Carcosa, all very high.
I'm kind of with you there. I think that a lot. I kind of thought a little bit about it, and I think it's mostly to do with, I guess, the way that Dunwich is presented, as opposed to like a cycle like Carcosa, for example. There are a lot of like idyllic things in Carcosa, like the pallid mask. You're just chasing this guy around for the whole thing, and you've got this idea of this mask in your head. You've got the yellow sign, which is also kind of like a symbol that runs throughout the whole thing. You've got the whole dueling doubt or conviction thing going on. So there are these like really deeply ingrained things with the lore that are reflected in the mechanics that kind of go about and succeed in a lot of different ways. Whereas in Dunwich, looking at it, there isn't like one singular thing that you're following from point A to point to Lost in Time and Space. It's just a lot of different like scenery, and you don't really get one specific thing. Like if I had to pick the most memorable scenario for me, it would be the Essex County Express, and that's not even like a place. That's like when you're trying to go from point A to point B. Like that's like what happens in the middle. So like I feel like maybe the most one of the other memorable points is Blood on the Altar, because that's when you first see Dunwich as what it really is. But there's not really like a singular thing that ties everything together in Dunwich in the way. It's just kind of like you're dealing with these like weird grody situations with these like weird country folk and eventually sucked into space. But otherwise kind of more in Arkham. So for that reason, for the reason like that it's not a singular thing that flows in both the lore and the mechanics, I don't like it as much as I like Carcosa and Dream Eaters and things like that.
I think it'll be good to compare it against like Innsmouth when it comes out, because Innsmouth I'm expecting to be a similar like focused on a spooky town where everyone hates you type of thing.
I'm really excited for Innsmouth because I realized that the joke that like the even numbered Star Trek movies are the good ones. At least for me, there's like I'm realizing there's kind of the same pattern with these campaigns, because I think like Carcosa and Circle and Dun are like up here, like those are the really good ones, and then the other ones I like and dislike various parts of them, and it's really hard to like rate them against each other, but like they're all kind of like a pile down below. But like Innsmouth, so this is going to be the 6th full campaign, not counting the Corset, so we're back in even numbers. It's going to be really great. I'm excited.
Good. Yeah,
as the word conspiracy right in the title, this is going to be a mythology episode of the X-Files, right? Like I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess it's good to bring up too, in the Circle Undone, this was also in Arkham, right? Like this is, and I remember going into it, I was like, well, how are they going to make it different from the Arkham that we know, from the core set and from like the first part of Dunwich? And then they did a really good job with it. It felt far spookier, far deeper into the witch and Silver Twilight Lodge theme than this did. So yeah. So the 6 investigators.
Well, I think Innsmouth has been confirmed only a 5, unless there's something I didn't know. I think like the advertisements and stuff say 5 on them. Unfortunately, very sad. Because we were all excited for like Charlie Kane as a neutral investigator or something weird.
See, this is another reason Circle Undone is so good. It had 11 investigators.
But to be fair, they are releasing
10.
5 starter decks like a month or 2 before Innsmouth. So it's like
I was about to say that, yeah.
You'd say it's kind of like we get 10 investigators, and
Yeah, there you go.
and we know those are going to be more novellas. Like it's not going to just be Dexter, right? There's going to be like another 4 at least from that set. So we got lots of new investigators coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I know it went a little long and we had some technical difficulties along the way, but we got there. I hope you guys enjoyed. For all of you guys who are inevitably going to be watching on YouTube, we had fun doing it, and we want to come back together and hang out on stream with you guys soon. Check us out on Facebook or Reddit. Drop us a comment here or wherever you listen to podcasts. Email us your Dunwich experiences. If you have any cool happenings that any interesting personal stories that happened in Dunwich, at comments@mur.fm. Well, until next time, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, time to stop the stream.